Thank you very much indeed, Mike, and thanks to your board for the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Hang in there.
So next...
Not going anywhere just yet.
Next I would call Carolyn Potter and Melanie Coker will come to the table as well, I assume, from the Spreydon-Cashmere Community Board. Carolyn and Melanie, good morning and welcome. You have 10 minutes to present your board report and we look forward to hearing from you.
Kia ora tātou. We'll be guided by our pictures at the beginning, form over function, wherever the pictures are.
They're coming, don't worry.
They'll be on the screen.
Here we go. Oh, we've got a title picture. Brilliant. Right, so we're just going to roll through the images we've got here. So in this slide, we've got an initiative by our recreation advisor, Emma Pavey, who decided it would be a good idea to do a Get Set Go workshop with the youth who had approached the board about having basketball lights in Hone Park because she wanted to get them upskilled to be able to run their own event. So she did that of her own initiative and got them all to come along and ran that workshop herself. You can see her there in the middle, and what the kids said at the end, she said, "What have you learnt today?" And then they said to her, "We've learnt that you do a whole lot more work than we do." So it was really cool that she'd done that, and we're really appreciative of it. And yeah, it's building the community basically, with good community development.
Next slide. Who runs this? These pictures are from the Addington Times, which I helped deliver and delivered over the weekend, and is a wonderful local newsletter. And this is the opening of the Little River Link Cycleway, which I've already mentioned. I received notice of the opening 24 hours before it happened. It poured with rain, but there was a fantastic turnout, and apparently the food provided by the contractor was terrific. And so those some of the local people there and local dignitaries as well. We mustn't confuse the two. And there for the opening, but it's a very good thing for Addington, and it always has been a good thing for Addington. And one of the things it did was, because there was a cycleway coming off Brougham from Collins Street, we closed traffic into Addington from Brougham, which meant that the rat run through to town, which used to occur with people going round our old and beautiful St Mary's Church at 70 and 80 k's and running into bollards and wrecking the local neighbourhood. They've been stopped from coming off and doing that rat run, and the cycleway has been acknowledged by the locals. I know, it's such a shame. It's been acknowledged by the locals as well as cyclists as being of great benefit to the neighbourhood, and we're very pleased to have it.
Here's some pictures of some plants, native plants. So in Windsor Crescent, which runs, but there's a walkway between Windsor Crescent and Littleton Street. I don't know if you know where West Spreydon School is. And there was a community group, an informal group that had come to the board before I was on it about 5 years ago, wanting to put in a community garden. And apparently at the time, the report came, it was a little bit tricky because of the sort of legalese around the land and the trickiness of it, but finally what they've been able to do is rather than putting in an edible kind of garden, they're putting in native plants. So you can see in the slide the bit where they've sprayed off the grass on either side. A lot of parents wait here, it's like right next to a pedestrian crossing, so they'll wait there for their kids to cross the road and take them home. So they had a big plant out about 2 weekends ago, putting lots of plants in, which we should have got some photos of, but they're on Facebook if you want to look around on there. So that's pretty cool.
And the St Martin's Bowling Club came to see us. They were so strategic, fantastic. They came to see us a month ago just to talk about the St Martin's Bowling Club, and looked absolutely wide-eyed when we asked if they wanted anything, and said absolutely not. And here they are providing coaching to local school pupils around the corner from the bowling club. It is a venue which is bang in the middle of St Martin's and has people going there to speak. For instance, I've spoken there at a Probus Club meeting, and so it's available to the community. And lo and behold, we got a request last week for funding for 2 heat pumps, which we were delighted to approve.
You
This is part of the board's bus tour, and we're looking at the reservoir, which is in the postmodern photograph at the bottom. It looks as though it could be something out of the film Chinatown. And the reservoir is a great space. There's already been a wedding held there. You can't see what it looks like, but you walk into it and there's walls on either side and concrete up the front. Shut up, Michael. And there's a lawn there, and it's a great space for movies or weddings or any kind of function who want to hire out something which looks quite unusual but is very functional. And we're hoping that this reservoir space will have great public use between the two reservoirs. We hope that this space will provide a great function space for the people who live on Huntsbury Hill, because lots of people living on the hills don't have access to green. And we are hoping that this will be able to provide a resource for the local people as well as a wider community, including the summertime's crowd.
Because we just did our bus trip quite recently, as you know, a couple of the councillors came along. The other thing that was probably one of the highlights was going to Old Stone House and having Richie and the contractor talk about the repairs that they're doing, which are quite intricate. But what was quite cool is when you go there, there's like a little boardwalk and you can just climb onto it, and all of a sudden you're on the roof and you can see what they're doing underneath all this plastic wrapping. So we're really excited when this, I've never been in the building myself, so I can't wait till it's open and we can go in there and have a function or something like that. So
and the bloke who talked to us, he lived, he was from the UK, and he lived right next door to the stone that we're getting to help rebuild the building, the quarry in the UK that were coming from there. And he was, of course, a stonemason. It was really fantastic to talk to him. And the prior building that he had done, just prior to the old stone house, was the Adventure Park, which has just had an award for architecture. So he'd gone from this really modern recycled timber building in the Adventure Park to the old stone house, and he was such an interesting person to talk to. Our concern with this building in the future will be that the volunteers are getting older, and we'll be looking for a rejuvenated community committee structure to handle the building. And I think the council is going to have some problems in the future facing volunteerism versus the facilities in our community and the running of them. And I think we're going to have to think up innovative ideas to manage those issues in the future. The floodplain management, this is 2014 round the loop at Beckenham, and the next one is last week with the rains on the floodplain on Sparks Road. And these basins on Sparks Road and Henderson's Road and Sutherland's Road and in other areas up in the southwest around the new developments are designed by the drainage guys to prevent flooding further downstream in the Heskett. And we are thrilled to see them and to have them. And as these basins get developed and the trees start to grow, they'll also become a walking facility for the local neighbourhood. And thanks to Carlene's intervention, we've got signs up around these basins in Punawai and all around to explain to the community that it isn't yet another housing development about to come in, but a flood basin to help prevent flooding in Christchurch. Because I don't think the council does enough to communicate with its people what we are doing, how we are doing it, and why we are doing it. And I think we should be putting more signs up around projects to say what's happening and where their ratepayers' dollars are going. Because it's really good to tell the community, you may think this is a problem right now, but what's going to happen in the future will be great for all of us, just as this is. And then we, do you want to do the buses first?
So another thing that's happening is next week we're going to have the community come along to talk about bus routes. We all know with the changes with ECAN's bus routes over the last few years, they've sort of become more difficult for people, and people are wanting routes in certain places like up the hill and through Summerfield and things. So we're going to get ECAN and council to come along and talk to them and find out about what they're wanting and to get that information together. So it's next Monday.
Yeah, we've got a Cashmere View Hospital provides laundry for all of Bupa's facilities in Christchurch, and the smell from the laundry has been a bane for local neighbours for 5 years or more, and continues to be a bane. And we would like greater involvement from ECAN on these issues about air quality. We've had a meeting between Bupa and us and ECAN, which was a good meeting and a cooperative meeting, but we'd like to see some big decisions being made about air quality in Christchurch. At the moment we're doing consultations on the community plan, and we're having such fun with it, and we've been into several supermarkets, and yet last night Melanie and I and staff members were at the Rowley shops, and we were interviewing young people, mostly young people, in the community at the Rowley shops about their response to the community plan. And it was just so interesting, their understanding, their interpretation, for instance, of culture, which involved their first languages, which were Tongan, Samoan, Niuean, and their interest in pursuing their languages and having the ability to retain their languages, whereas against in the St Martin's supermarket they would have been talking about the cathedral. So it's just interesting to talk about the culture and their heritage and what they want from their community, and whether they want old buildings and new buildings and public transport and things. And so that was great fun. And the other one is Vista Place. We've got a real problem up there with people in cars smoking obscure substances and playing dub music at the top of their noise, and calling the local residents, calling the police. Most nights, actually, night before last, they were there until 3 a.m. And we really wish that we could resolve that issue. We're trying to get a meeting between traffic engineers, police and us going. It's very difficult to get the police to come to meetings. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. So there is time for a couple of questions.
Regards to the Huntsbury Reservoir, it just seems a really logical thing that this is a hill suburb, lots of kids up there. It's the only flat area up there, and I want to thank, we want to thank Tim Drennan and his team for being open-minded and opening that to the community, because it took some time to kind of get that across. And if I had gone up there with my son, and if we had gone to the gates, which are bigger than Fort Knox's, a feat of engineering, and if we had decided to have a competition to jump them, I might have got over at 9.6 seconds, which beat my son, who was over at 10, if we'd actually done that. So.
Great, thank you. Phil.
Mine isn't a question, but a quick comment to, one, thank the board for a very full report, but two, just the comments in relation to the Little River Cycleway, and I think the board are aware that, in fact, the opening of that was run by NZTA. So, but what I do want to say is council are really grateful for the huge support that the community board gave well, the whole Cycleway project really, and the local residents. It was a very good example, in my view, of the community board being really proactive and supporting, you know, what will be as a neat project. So thank you for that.
Great,
and
thank you.
Happy to move or second the report, depending on time.
Yep, all right, so Phil moves, Tim seconds. I'll take a couple of other questions, one from Dion, one from Anne, and then we'll move on. Dion.
This is more I don't know how to ask this. It's more a response of what was said about the what, how, why comms. Can we get some sort of report to the Innovation and Sustainable Development Committee about our comms strategy around that sort of stuff? Because that committee is in charge of the council's brand and communication strategies. Sorry, I'm getting a cold. And I'd actually like to sort of, from what was just said, actually move that on further.
We do that through the committee.
I'm not sure what you were asking for around communications around.
It was around, came up with infrastructure yesterday as well.
It did?
Telling people what
Yeah.
People know about programs.
Yeah. So I think that it's just something we get on and do. In terms of a proposal was that as we're starting to develop things, there's more information about what's going on and showing people that, you know, this is a council project as opposed to something else.
So we can just do it from the committee? All right, sounds good.
No, just doing it sounds great.
Just do it? Okay, great.
All right, great, thanks Dion. And finally Anne.
Yeah, just a fantastic work engaging with the community, particularly young people, fabulous. And secondly, when is your ECAN bus route meeting? Because that would be great.
I think it's on Monday night.
Would it be okay if, I attended? Would that be okay?
Oh, I'm
Because I
not
think-
sure. Have you got a passport?
It's just that there's similar issues.
We'll
in our
check your
ward.
pockets at the door.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed for the update, and I'd certainly echo the comments made by Phil Clearwater around the opening of the Little River Link cycleway. I attended that with a number of other councillors, and Carolyn, yes indeed, the food was particularly good, but the event was particularly good, and it's so important that we celebrate these things, and celebrate, I think in this case, the way that that particular cycleway was well supported by the local community. So it was great to see so many people there that
I
day.
would have loved to have been there had I known, and if I hadn't had a red fridge arriving at that time.
Yeah, and we certainly take that point, and Phil has certainly addressed that in his comments as well, but thank you. So we now move to receive your community board report. Do I have a mover? Phil, seconded by Tim. All in favour? Against? That's carried.